What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Alex Walton Experience. In this episode, I'm going to be introducing you to Drew Morisey, founder of How to Rap. Drew and I originally met in 2014 when he joined the Boss Life Mastermind and became a dear client.
My name is Drew Morisey. I'm a new member of this lovely Boss Life outfit.
At that time, he was studying at UCLA and trying to start his first online business so that he could travel. Within a year and a half of joining the crew, he traveled to Budapest to join us for one of our Boss Life immersion programs. Today, he has over 393,000 subscribers, and that's just on YouTube, teaching people how to rap. This guy is dominant in his industry. He essentially defined his own field of expertise. No one had ever done anything like this before. He was the first guy. He's a pioneer. This guy's made multiple six figures as a touring rapper and a traveling rap coach for over half a decade. I've known this guy for a long time. We've been friends for a long time. This was our first conversation in quite a while. So let's roll the intro and then get right to the conversation. I've been an obsessed student of self-development since 2007 and have traveled the world coaching purpose-driven, high-performing men since 2013. Entrepreneurs up to the multi-billion-dollar level, investors, public speakers, bankers, doctors, psychologists, military. This stuff works for them, so I'm confident this will help you too. So if you want to know how to think about life going into 2021, or even if you're just curious, this will be the video for you. Now, before we begin, be sure to subscribe with notifications because I release 2 videos per week about how to live a boss life. And of course, if you're really passionate about how to handle 2021, be sure to download the free Quarantine Domination Blueprint or sign up for a free Habit Hacker Mastermind consultation to go even more in depth on this topic. Sign up link in the description box below. Bro.
Yeah, sounds good.
This is awesome because actually we haven't had a chance to talk about all this craziness. You have been helping me with growing the YouTube channel, giving me the business, showing me this is what to do. Obviously, you've managed to do how many subs do you have right now on How to Rap?
Like 389. We're closing in on 400. Yeah.
That's wild, man.
Yeah, it's big numbers out there, man. Could be doing even better, that's all I think. I'm like, damn, But
So
yeah, big
give me
numbers.
the business there, but that's pretty much all we've chatted about. We haven't even really talked about it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we caught up on the phone maybe once or twice this year, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, just as far as just mindset, I mean, obviously we follow each other's content, but just how we're thinking about shit, you know what I mean? Especially because, we hung out in person like hard right before that shit happened, right? It was like the end of February. And so like, it's been kind of this blip, little did we know, you know what I mean?
I know. Yeah.
God, like the world is going to change.
Yeah, it absolutely did. It absolutely did. And what do you like? I mean, I have felt like it's been an opportunity. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, well, every crisis equals seed opportunity, like Napoleon Hill would say. I've, like to sit here and say I prefer that it like prefer the options. Like, no, I wish I had spent the year in Europe. You know what I mean? Like for sure.
Yeah.
But it did open a lot of corners for me, that I probably wouldn't have addressed otherwise. Whether that's like business, team, like I'm not much more to have a team. Just the working out stuff. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I was working out before, right? And I
Yeah.
was, you even remember I was going to the gym while traveling, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have been super consistent. And just, being in the hometowns and stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I'm just getting through it. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not gonna lie and be like, yes, thank God. You know what I mean? But it's been useful, if nothing else.
Okay. Great. And yeah,
You
I
know?
remember. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree for sure. It's like, okay, well, would you have chosen, like, would you have rather that, been able to also go out and have a good time? Yeah, probably for sure. But yeah,
Yeah, definitely cut down my ass amount, but I did better than I thought I'd do as far as getting chicks.
okay.
I consider, it's not great numbers, but much better than I could have. I was like, look, I'm looking at 1 or 2 this year, and I definitely did a lot better than that.
Okay, that's amazing.
You know?
Yeah, well, not me. I've been locked up in the den all year, dude.
That's good, man. I think it's been good for you, man.
It has.
You know, and you've
Yeah.
used it, which is great. I feel like your knowledge base, you're much more. I remember when you did that miracle morning thing, and I want to do that really bad because I need to kind of figure out what I'm doing in life. But you did that right. You probably did that 3 to 4 months before, right? The lockdown, right? So I'm talking about the email.
I don't
You
remember what you're
emailed
talking
like
about.
you emailed like because it was from the miracle morning at the end. It was like email all of your closest friends and ask them what you're good at, what you're bad. You know what I'm
I
saying?
did that. Yeah, I did that. Actually, Charlie
Yeah,
gave me that exercise.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. That was like, let's say fall, maybe of 2019.
Hmm.
And then that's when you started to kind of the seed of what boss life is as far as like, branding and stuff. And so you were like, future you were clairvoyant with that too. Because like little did we know you'd have a whole fucking year to just fucking explore that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, bro. And that stuff is useful for the people watching who are curious. That's like an exercise from the homie Charles Black, who Drew knows well as well.
Mhm.
And he asked me these questions, and I just stole them and asked you and a bunch of other my close homies. The first question is, what are top three? What are my top 3 to 5 strengths? What can you count on me for? Then, what are my top 3 to 5 weaknesses? What can you not count on me for? And finally, what's my unique gift, or what am I best in the world at? It was so actually scary to send that. I was like, fuck, I don't want to read all the negative shit people think about me. Fuck. But then I just was like, fuck it, send it out. And it actually, you know, it was really helpful to see with clarity the patterns. People, like, the weaknesses were, there's very similar patterns. The strengths, there were very similar patterns. It was like very clear, this is what I need to work on across the board. Everyone is saying these things. So I was like, all right, it was almost took some of that pressure off, where I was like, didn't want to see this, how people didn't like me or what they didn't like about, couldn't rely on me for that kind of thing. And then when I saw, well, I'm the strengths are good, and then these weaknesses are changeable.
Mhm, mhm,
And so
mhm.
I'm like, I thank you for bringing it up, and thank you for your feedback. I've been really working on, particularly trying to just realize my own strengths and use them, and also, picking the most heinous of those weaknesses to really attack. And like you said, this year has definitely been just giving me plenty of time to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, as I said, for me, probably just this year has turned over some stones that, may have never gotten uh unturned for me. And I think a lot of people, that's everybody, and people who aren't into like self-development or anything like that, that's why they're going crazy. You know what I mean? Quote unquote on both sides, right? Like everybody's just completely out of their mind because they're having to like, basically it's like a bed underneath the bed that never got cleaned up, and there's just so much stuff
Yeah.
there, right? There's like mail that you from the government you were supposed to answer. There's like a picture of you and your ex-girlfriend. Like there's, just so to speak, like there's just in everybody's bed underneath their bed is just not it's stuff, and we're just stuck in our bedrooms for a year and having to clean up.
Dude, yes.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah. I remember, Chris Bale, yeah? Our homie Chris.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He
What's up
says
with that,
he says
dude? Yeah.
like really profound stuff sometimes. And he said something about, like, the work is about cleaning up the mess. Like, people, like, there's like barf behind the washing machine, and people want to avoid like cleaning up behind the
Mhm.
washing machine. They're like, just please, will someone else, I'll pay whatever amount of money, just take care of it
Yeah,
for me.
right.
Right.
But it smells, so somebody's got to clean it up,
Yeah, and it
and that's
actually has
that's
to
what it.
be us.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, it's been a wild ride,
Mm.
but it feels good. Like I just like whenever we can do things again, it's gonna be. The mundane nonsense in public or whatever that I took for granted. You know
Bro,
what I mean?
Yes.
Like I can't even, like, obviously there's the party aspects where, this bar sucks. And then now I'm like, oh, I would love to be in that stupid bar. But just I don't know, even being in grocery stores and stuff without masks and stuff, like that stuff can be pleasant depending on the location. And
Yeah.
and taking walks and sightseeing and things that you just take for granted. And now it's like an event. So when I get back out there, I'm just gonna be so thankful, travel more, but also do less of what I don't like. You know what I mean? Like, I think it was like the first quarter of the pandemic, everybody was kind of like excited and motivated. You know what I mean? You're seeing like people in Italy singing, a lot of people, including us, kind of getting back into our like habits and self development. Then, like, as time went on, you start to just get stir crazy,
Mm.
and then you're realizing how many things you don't like just being stuck in the house. But now, for me, there's things that I like just even by myself or just being with myself, that I can realize, oh, I like doing this and I don't like doing those things I did in the middle of the summer, hanging out with the wrong people. I
Wow.
mean, man, I'll tell you what, hanging out with somebody because you need to socialize because you've been stuck in your house all day,
Yeah.
and like the friend circles, and you're like, well, I gotta socialize. I don't really like this person. It's like, in the future, I'm just gonna be a lot stronger on my boundaries. And when I'm outside in the world, it's just like, man, be with the people you like, because you don't know if there's another lockdown or another pandemic or whatever happens.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna regret. Damn, I hung out in these places I didn't like with these people I didn't like,
Yep.
um, all the time that we were free. You know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
so
man.
yeah,
Well, as just to get this out of the way, because that's really been the main focus of the year, has been habits. I'd
yeah,
love to hear from you about your experience doing this, because I just started making this a priority for real this year. It was
hmm
something I always knew about, but I could never get myself to do it. And you came and hung out with Andrew and I. For those watching, I call it now the Noah's Ark program, 40 days and 40 nights, living one
love
on
it.
one
I
with me.
love that. I saw that. I love that. Yeah, that's so dope. That's
So
hot.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. It means I
I
appreciate
love
that
it.
from you.
I love it. It's like you could do the Ben Franklin. You could go to the founding father, or you could go to God himself. I love it. Hey man, I'm sold, yo.
so
No,
so so Drew came out and visited us, and you had already been doing your daily routines for, I don't know, over a year or something, and it was just
mhm.
locked in for you. You knew how much time it took. You knew, if I miss this, it's going to take me that much time. Like, you had all the nuances sorted. So I'd love your perspective on just sort of habits in general, maybe why it's important, especially right now, or anything related. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, man. I mean, I love what you're doing. I love what the crew is doing. With me, it's funny because, very similar to this year, because people are stuck in their house.
Mm,
I was stuck in my house for about like most of the year 2019.
mm,
That was a personal decision. I'd just gone on this world tour. It's like I'd gone on the last rock tour or something, and I just needed a year off.
yeah.
What do the rock stars say? Like, tour canceled for rest and relaxation. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I told myself for a year I just wouldn't travel that much. I wouldn't do a lot. And after a couple months, I was again getting stir crazy. And what I
Mm,
noticed was, you know, my productivity, my happiness would just be very unpredictable,
mm,
sitting in that house. So, for a day, 2 days, I might get a month's worth of work done, you know, but then I wouldn't know if I was going to be up till 4 in the morning watching YouTube or whatever. And I certainly wasn't reading a lot. And I wasn't getting, wow, okay, somebody's calling, terrible timing. Okay, we're good.
we're good.
Um, Yeah, I didn't know, I wasn't like I was getting older, like my body started hurting, so no, I didn't have the yoga or nothing. I was just like kind of disorganized and I didn't like my mind, you know what I mean? Like
Mm.
I wasn't, I didn't like, I wasn't accountable with myself. So anyway, I read three three major habit books before even really deciding it. Like I like to read in themes or learn in themes, right? So, I'll read 2 to 3 books on a subject that I don't know about, and
Huh.
then I'll watch a bunch of YouTubes about it, or whatever channels. Um, and
That's
that's
cool,
it.
man.
Yeah, I'm just a binge learner. You know what I mean? I think a lot of us are, right? Where the cliche tons of half-read books. Um, I think that's partially just because
Yeah.
we get really interested in something for 6 days, and then it's on to whatever, which is okay, especially with like you can read a book, you can watch a bunch of YouTubes, and then you can kind of implement it in your life, and then you've kind of learned it, and then you can come back, right? So anyway, I read three
Right.
habit books. Um, One by far my favorite was 5 Second Rule, Mel Robbins. That's my joint.
Oh,
Like I want to read that. I have it, but I want to read that like once a year.
I'll write it
Probably
down.
read it twice. Yeah, that's the joint. No fluff, just direct, applicable, but cool. Not like I like Mark Manson a lot, but he kind of writes for style too. So
Yeah.
sometimes I can read it and I'll be like, oh, I get it. You have to curse a lot to make it, she's able to be direct without without the sauce. I read that. I read Miracle Morning, right? Kind of the go to, and then one other. Oh, Power of Habit, Charles Duhigg, I think it's pronounced.
Yeah.
Um, and so from those three books, I kind of just built my own personal thing, and you quickly kind of realize, and I'm sure you guys are noticing this. There's a lot of stuff that is just not going to get done unless you put it into that morning routine, or at least put it in whatever your peak. Like I'm not going to do yoga after noon, after 12 p.m. I'm probably not going to meditate after about noon. Uh, Reading a book, I might do that, but I might also, you go to the gym, you get into work thing, and then I don't feel like reading whatever I'm supposed to read. So I
Yep.
just realized I had to front load my day to get these things out. Um, but
It's
these are
fucking
also things I.
genius.
Oh yeah, my bad. I'm rambling.
No, no, no. Go ahead. It's fucking genius. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So I also this is sort of like what Charles was talking about, Charles Black, in your last podcast. Go listen to that. It's the homie.
Yeah, thank you.
But how do I do the Charles laugh? I get
He's so
um, he's amazing. But and he's always been that way, by the way, people.
yeah,
That
for
is him.
real.
If anything, he's too
Yeah.
much toned down.
I think
But
so. Yeah.
oh yeah, he's great now. But okay, so he was talking about like small, like do whatever you can, right? So these things that I'm mentioning, I just do enough that I did them for the day. I think the way he said it was, writing. He used the example of I'll write one page, just enough that I want to write more, but I just stop.
Yeah.
So that's like me. I read 10 pages of a book a day. I could read much more, especially depending on the book. But I just read 10 and I'm out. And then anything else I can do, audiobooks or read for pleasure later on.
Ah.
Um,
But you
and
cut
I do a
yourself
bunch.
off in the morning, right there at 10.
Yeah, because I got a million other things to do, right? Like and I'll run through those. But the other thing before I get into that is from the Power of Habit. They explain through like science that through this thing called science. So through like science, it's this thing. Oh man, that sounded ridiculous there. But okay, so they figured out that the best way for habits to be learned is in groups. You know what I mean? So they use some example of a
Wow.
guy who's like his brain, who's in an accident, and the part of his brain, I guess, that deals with either memory or recognition or something, he got knocked out, and he couldn't recognize his own family. But when they let him, he was getting healthier, and they let him like do little exercise outside, and he would literally walk off the medical campus and go on his morning walk from when he was like 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
And they were like, what the? They realized that it was because it was the group of actions that he had internalized as a child, right? So even though he couldn't remember, how to tie his shoes, but he could remember take a left on First Street, right on Main Street, blah, blah, blah. And then they kind of, extrapolated info from that. So, I also learned small things in groups and then train yourself to just knock that out, hence the routine aspect of it.
Uh-huh.
And and then I spent about a year, by the time I'd seen you guys in February, I've been doing about 6 months to a year. And I've just last like few months, I'm like, it's airtight, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm at the point I feel not well if I don't do all of them,
Wow. That's fucking
so
awesome.
yeah, so yeah, it's just and that, one other thing I'll say book wise is, and you'll remember this, the in Miracle Morning, right? Hal and Rod or whatever his name is. He explains, he like, what I really like about that book is that he goes through what the first 30 days are going to feel like. Um, like if you
Mm,
remember, he's like, the first 10 days are going to feel like this, right? He's gonna
yeah.
be like, you're going to hate him. Day 20, you're going to feel antsy. Day 30, he has a little rundown. I don't even remember if that's how it felt, but it did help, to have sort of like working out, like it helps to know,
Mm,
okay, like if you're lifting under 15 on this exercise and you're this weight is probably not good, blah 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 blah.
mm.
So that was the other big thing I learned is that it takes some real time to not, like the first 20 days or so were just excruciating, man. Like it was so hard not to grab that phone. Um and just I'm like, why am I doing this? This is so stupid. Meditation, reading, who cares? Right? That's what my brain was saying.
Yeah.
But by now it's life, you know what I mean? And I won't ever stop doing some version of what I'm doing now because it's crucial.
Bro.
That was a lot.
Dude. Hell yeah, that's awesome. That's fire. That's fire. So I just want to clarify. At first, when you said in groups, I thought you meant groups of people, but were you saying, individual habits
Stacked.
stacked?
Yeah, stacked and needing to be done in an order. You know what I mean? Um, which I find pretty crucial because, like I said, after a while, you'll notice after the one thing gets done, the itch gets scratched to the other one,
Yes,
right? You
yes,
know what I mean? I'm sure the
yes.
habit crew, knows about that, right? Where, I wake up, read the book, have a coffee with the book. So reading the book, I crave the coffee, right?
Ah,
Um, then I learn a word, you know. So right after the book's done, I kind of want to I write it on my iPad, and then after that, plan my day after the words, and you just feel these things,
mm.
naturally. And but
Maybe go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, but the good thing is once it's really locked in, you can cherry pick them as needed still. You know what I mean? You can switch it up once you're really comfortable with it. Occasionally I just have a work thing that I can't, I don't have time to read a book in the morning. I just gotta knock it out. But yeah.
Hmm. I was gonna ask, maybe you could just run us through how your routine looks right now. Like, what's that?
Yeah, so yeah, like I said, well, okay, so I wake up. Um, I am actually an atheist, but I do a little like thank you thing. That was just over the year, trying to kind of experimenting with spirituality, and I just have a personal phrase that it's just a reminder that I'm doing something with my life essentially, and I don't know. Again, it's just kind of a mental thing. So I literally just take a deep boom, 2 seconds,
It's like
then
gratitude.
yeah, you can call it gratitude, right?
Okay.
Um, you know, uh, yeah. So just a little blup, then read the book, 10 pages, with the coffee. Sometimes I listen to a song as I'm making the coffee. Just to, that's not in the habit list, but it's just, that I think that's important too. Like, what do you listen to the minute you
Mm,
first wake up?
mm,
Um, and so I jump around, but usually I just read the book, then learn a word. For a long time, that was just vocabulary, synonyms. What I would do is just for 3 days, right? I would have day one is write the word synonyms, antonyms, blah, blah, blah. Day 2, same thing. And then day 3, I try to remember it. And that
Okay.
worked well. Currently, I switched that to learn a word about investing or a business word, just because I feel like I'm very unqualified in sort of some of that lingo. And in one of my long-term goals, and I'm sure we'll talk about all this long-term stuff, but one of my longer-term goals is to get into the investment world, and so the sooner I can understand, it's like
Love
another
it.
language. You know what I mean? Like if people don't understand, like, net profit margin, like that, it literally is like speaking another language.
Yeah.
So I do that, then brush the teeth, right? You drank your coffee, got to brush your teeth. Meditation, that's 10 minutes, sometimes guided, sometimes silent. Then yoga. Now with me, when I was first doing the yoga, I would listen to like a guided yoga,
Hmm.
and blah blah. Then I learned the flow, right? The yoga flow, like that. That's like the chicks. I have a flow I can teach you, but so I learned the flow, and now I just really listen to whatever I feel like listening to while I'm doing my yoga.
Okay.
So that's like almost entertainment time in a way. Like sometimes I'll watch a TV show while I'm doing it. Sometimes I'll watch right now, again, I'm really on an investment tip, so I'm just watching stock stuff or sports card investing stuff. Um, and then after yoga, shower. In the shower, you do your definite major purpose. Any Napoleon Hill fans out there, got that down.
What is
Definite
that? I
major.
don't remember what that is. Definite major purpose. Oh,
So,
DMP. Hold on. We just talked about this shit, I think. Pierre just brought this
what?
up. One of my clients. Yeah, we're talking. That's on our docket to do this month. If it's the same DMP,
Yeah, I'm sure
sounds
it
like it.
probably is, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
The auto. If you remember, another word is for it is auto suggestion. It's all Think and Grow Rich stuff. You know what
Okay.
I'm talking about?
I do,
Yeah.
but I just can't remember how it goes exactly. And it's funny that it's exactly what Pierre brought up this month. He said, "I just figured this, something DMP purpose was the last word.
Yep.
This is awesome. We got to do this." And I'm like, "Cool, let's do it this month." But I
Yeah,
don't know what it
that's the
is yet.
truth. Well, okay, so there's a couple things. So there's auto suggestion, which is another word for affirmation, or Tony Robbins would call it incantation, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, so it's just basically auto suggestion is a theory in Think and Grow Rich where you can give direct orders to your subconscious mind to create
Love it.
physical reality, right?
Love it.
And he was one of the main innovators of that. And the word auto suggestion has kind of fell out of favor. Affirmation is kind of or visualization of the buzzwords of today, but it means basically the same thing. And then the definite major purpose, depending on the book, the way you read the book, you can think of definite major purpose as your primary goal for your life.
Okay.
But he also uses even more often the phrase definite chief aim. And so that's usually what he means. The definite chief aim being, by January 1st, 2021, I will have $10,000 in my bank account
Love
for
it.
services rendered, blah, blah, blah. So I built my own. And then he has another thing called a self-confidence formula. And I think in Think in the book, you're meant to just have your self-confidence formula be your day, but I just mixed them.
Yeah.
So I say them twice in the shower. Then I, skin care routine, blah, blah, blah. Then I do protein shake, right? Got to gain this weight. Um, and then I work, and then that's it. And then I have just, at the end of the day, I brush my teeth and say another thank you, and I'm done. Yeah.
Where's the gym fit in?
Every other day, as our Lord and Savior Kino Body says. But I don't, I don't have that in a habit app or anything like that. It kind of goes without saying for me. I just go every other day. I would love to go at night, but I also don't like a filled gym, especially with all the protocols and stuff. And it's not that I'm scared of catching anything. It's just annoying because everybody's kind of acting weird, in the gym with the distances and stuff. So I usually just go to the gym right after that every other day.
After work.
Oh no, after the morning routine. So
morning routine, gym,
Yeah,
work.
and then work. But you know, I would love to go at night. I'd probably be a little bit more productive, but I just don't want to be in that packed gym. It's just annoying, you know what I mean?
I feel it.
So yeah.
Amazing, dude. Damn, bro. And those DMPs, the DCA, is that kind of short? Is that like, or is it a
It
longer?
takes me about the definite major purpose slash definite chief aim itself is it could be set in a minute or two, depending
Okay.
on your length. The self confidence formula is a little longer, and since I stack them, it takes about 4 minutes. But you know, I say them twice, about the 8-10 minutes, about the length of a shower, and then
Love
I'm
it.
good.
I love it.
Yeah, and you know, it's cool because it's super in my mind now. Like I can do it by rote, as they say.
And that, if people wanted to try that, that's in Think and Grow Rich, yeah?
Yeah,
Great.
it's in Think and Grow Rich. Very clear instructions. You know, the self confidence is also in there, and you know, it's with that specific thing. I mean, you know, Bruce Lee is on record as has used that directly, and they have this famous sheet of Bruce Lee writing his definite chief aim in like 1959. I will be the
Damn.
highest paid Asian American actor in the world.
What?
Like, and to the date, like it's within like months of
What?
when Enter the Dragon
What?
came out. Yeah,
Dude, that's
yeah,
wild, man.
yeah, man. So yeah, it's dope, man. It's and I'm not too particular about which people can do. There's a million ways to do affirmations. Remember back in the day when we first really linked up and did our first like boss life immersion, I had the vision board. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And I had visualized literally us hanging out at Suzanne and like
we
that.
did it.
Yeah, we did it.
Cut to the
So
clip.
it All right, so here we are on the other side of the beautiful Suzanne Baths, and let's talk a little bit about how, first of all, I was inspired to kind of take this journey to this very location by one of Alex's great videos about his vision board, and he visited Cinque Terre, Italy, right?
Cinque Terre.
Cinque Terre. Hey,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's still there, real facts. So, yeah, so there's a million ways to do that.
That's really, really, really cool. So you have a very solid, I mean, you incorporate a lot of different elements into that. This is an element where you just described that's missing from mine, but that I got a lot of use from back in the day, like the power shower. I used to have these sort of affirmations I would read to myself starting 2011, like just to get my business going. And Andrew and I created this epic, well, really him, but just with like a bit of guidance from me. I took him through one of my favorite exercises, which I think you were there for, the superpower acquisition.
Oh, I love that thing. I still need to do mine. Ah, I
Didn't
thought
you
that
do
was like the
like
most.
pieces, like the
I
first
did.
couple
I did.
pieces?
Yeah, I've done. I have 50 names, and I did like 5 or 6. But like, I still think about that as how dope that is.
Thank you.
Like, that is like the coolest thing of all time. It was so fun. Like, it's dope.
It's fire, man. I love that kind of stuff. It's like just absorbing powers off people. You know, I kind of like this. Just quickly, I want to touch on this because I've been thinking about it. Is this like appreciation is almost a superpower? I was thinking about this last night. I think like the ability, to see someone who has something cool and to name it, to recognize it, and to actually appreciate it genuinely inside. It's like telling your subconscious you can have it and be that way too. Whereas if you're like most people, fairly enough feel insecure when someone else might have something that they want that they feel they can't have, might feel jealous, and then they're like, if they get angry or more jealous about that, then they're like telling their subconscious, I can't be that way. Simply by like, just think about if you were to be around like the coolest celebrity, like who comes to mind when you think of like a cool ass celebrity?
I don't know, Drake or something like that.
Let's say like you were around Drake and you were at like this little party and all of a sudden you guys were in a conversation, and I can imagine myself on one hand getting nervous and being like, shit, I'm talking to Drake, and like, freaking out in some kind of way internally. And then by the time I'm like, get my shit together, he's off talking to like, some other person who's cooler than me. But if I could just be like, even if there's a huge status gap, even if like huge, you know, which there is. And if I was just like, man, you know, if we were already there together, and I could be like, man, what you've done is just unbelievable, dude. Just incredible work, dude. Like you've created an empire. You know, you're an icon. Like, that's incredible. You know, I could appreciate it from a place of like, I'm okay. You know, I'm recognizing the status gap. I'm appreciating outwardly what I like about what he's done, and recognizing it. It's not, I don't feel insecure about it in a way that I'm like angry at him or putting, you know, there's no distance. There's no resentment. It's just pure appreciation. Well, he's probably going to be like, thanks, young blood. That's what's up. You know, like he's going to appreciate the love. And it almost puts me into a league of like, yeah, I might not be at his status level or even in the same universe, but I could hang here. Like I can hang in the same galaxy if you can just do that. I don't know why that came to my head, like what you just described about, you know, it just brought that to my mind. But I think that,
Yeah. I think he'd more be like, "Thank you, young blood." It's like, it's like no, but no, I feel you. I mean, it's like, you know, once people get to a certain status level, I feel like they just want it to not be a big deal. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you know, I guess one of the only things that, you know, I have that once somebody hears about it, they start to like, they could sometimes start to act different would be like, you know, the YouTube stuff. And yeah, I mean, I don't want anybody to, oh my God, you know, like, you know, more like they can do it the way like you've done it, where you're like, bro, that's dope. Like you're saying, there's a
yeah,
way to do it and feel it, delivering a compliment in a way that's just like, yo, that's hot, you know, rather than like, yo, oh my God, oh, we got a talent, we got a star here, you know. So yeah, I think it really comes from a lot of what we're talking about, where, you know, once you build your own mental like victories, you know, and that's another
yeah,
big reason I do that stuff is, you know, knocking out my own self-built routine based on the things I want to do. You know, if my day starts like that, it's really hard for any status or person to like fade. You know what I mean? It's just so much easier to be like, I'll be okay, because you know what I mean? Because I kind of know how, you know, if something sucks or something messes up, I can work my way through it. You know, I got 2 hours a day to just kind of be with me, you know.
hmm
um yeah, so you feel a lot more confident for sure.
yeah. You conquered your own like stuff already, kind of.
Yeah, yeah, you got to get a victory, you know, as soon as possible. And trust me, in those first early days, like, it's gonna feel like a fought victory, you know. I guess the other thing I should mention, of course, is you cannot, through all of this, you can't have your phone, you know. Like I said, I'll listen to
Uh,
content when I'm doing, but no texting, no. That's like where I learned from Mel Robbins' 5 second rule. He's like, the minute I turn on that phone, I respond to even my loved ones. You know, she's a mom. You know, she's like, if I open my door for my kids, I'm on their time. You know, not my time.
yes.
I'm on the world's time. So, you know, I have another phone line at this point, like a phone that nobody really has except for my direct family members, and I use that for the first half of the day and the end
Wow.
of the day, because I'm like, you know, I'm like, bro, like I cannot, like the world will win, right? The world
Yeah,
will win whether it's good news or bad news.
you're
You
right.
know, you're in the middle of your morning routine. You just made $10 million. Your routine's done. You know, you just like lost $10 million. Your routine's done. So you know that, I think that's the other big thing is like no notifications, airplane mode, unless you get another phone. You know what I mean? Sort of like again Charles Black. He was like, I delete the YouTube app. Even I haven't gotten that far. That's hardcore. But yeah, basically don't, like, you don't have to fight with yourself. Just don't allow yourself. You know, take the cookie jar and put it in the car. You know what I mean? Like,
Don't buy them at the supermarket either. Yeah.
yeah, right, right. Don't go to the supermarket. Don't eat food if you're gonna eat cookies. Yeah. So yeah.
That's smart. I really need to implement that myself. That's something that I don't do. I'm just like, I know I should, but I just don't. So I really fucked that up major. And I definitely noticed the times when I have made the effort. I'm like, it just laser focuses me through the routine. And by the time I get like out of it and
Yeah.
into work mode, I'm just also still not really checking my phone. I'm like, no, this feels good. I'll stick here. I can check my phone later. But if I start right away, I'm like, it's no big deal. I'll just kick it here in bed for like 20 minutes on my phone, looking at shit. I'll take my slow ass time getting out of bed. I still do all my habits, but I don't think I hit that same flow.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, the stuff on this thing it's designed to destroy your neurons. You know what I mean? It's like, and millions, billions of dollars is put into making it so that you're not focused on anything that is related to your own self well-being. I mean, the good news is, again, all
So
how do you
true.
really feel? How do you really feel, Drew? Facebook fan over here. Hey, Black Zuckerberg over here. No, I mean, but for real, like almost every time I open some of these apps, I'm just like, I literally
Jack
say to
Morrissey.
myself,
I was trying to do a Jack Dorsey joke. Sorry.
Jack Dorsey, yeah, I got you.
Jack
I caught it.
Morrissey.
Jack Morisey. Hey man, I like it. He has much better hair though.
That's fair.
Which I mean I have no hair, but no. But what was I gonna say? Yeah, every time remember back in Instant, I would come in and be like, "Welcome to heaven" or whatever I scream.
Yeah.
I when I open my apps now, I'm like, here comes the poison. That's what I tell myself because it's mostly just all poison. You know what I
Here
mean?
comes the poison.
You
Yeah.
know, but it actually does help. You know what I mean? Because I've become like Instagram. I use it less and less. Um, just because I'm like, there's just not a lot of quality content out there. You know what I mean? Like, of course,
Yeah.
it's Alex Walton is amazing. uh, there's some good people out there, but social media in general, I think is just I get it. It's especially if you're like in your teens or whatever, you know what I mean? Or if you're in that age range that it's like fun still, but it's just not much out there, man. It's just mostly it's just gossip, you know what I mean? Like it's
Mm.
just like, especially in my world, which is like music, right? Offset and Cardi B, did they break up again? Like really, I never need to know in my entire life what Offset and Cardi B,
No.
the news, same thing. Oh, the house isn't doing I don't care, right? You know what I mean? Like I do care, but it's like, I certainly don't care before my routine's done.
Right.
I certainly don't care before my video or whatever my life goals are. Um, so maybe another way to say it is I don't have a lot of control over this, so I just move on.
I
But
like
yeah.
it. Genius, man. I'd like to, I'm real curious to get into maybe some of the long-term thinking, so sort of, and especially I'd love to hear what your predictions are about the future, how we move, how things are going to move on from here, and what we can do to prepare ourselves, properly, what you're doing to prepare yourself, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, aliens are real. It's like
Uh,
and this is all just the government plot to insert aliens into our brain. All right, I was about to keep joking
Drew
about
has
it. Like,
that
let me tell
insider info, bro. Drew has that
Hey man,
inside information.
me, I don't. You watch the Joe Rogan a lot, so me and Eddie Bravo, we got it together. I don't know that much, but
Look
okay.
into it,
So,
bro.
hey man, truth, stay woke. No, okay. So I read. This is actually very apropos because I just finished. Damn, I put it back on my bookshelf.
I think I saw this on
Uh,
Instagram.
yeah, Christakis, which again, Rogan fans will know them. Sam Harris fans will know him. But yeah, this is Yale physician. Also wrote another book that was pretty buzzy, Blueprint, which I think is the evolution, like the evolutionary origins of a good society. I think is the tagline. He's a Yale physician and like epidemiologist or whatever, and he wrote what I consider right now the best book on coronavirus. Most of it is just how this all went down. It's pretty crazy that the history of this is so recent. So
Yeah.
we're talking about first case, and it was here, and this is how it. But what made me buy the book and read it was on Sam Harris Waking Up. No, it's called Making Sense Now
Mm.
podcast. He talked about what it's going to look like in his best estimation. And so, obviously right now we are in the steps of the vaccine rollout. Is this what you want to talk about, or do you want to just?
Dude, just break it down. I'm curious your take.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is the reason I even bring this up is because once I heard him talk about it this way, it helped me kind of decide where I'm thinking in my own life. So anyway, in the basic vaccine rollout, right? Around the country, around the world, UK is doing it. This is going to take a while, right?
Mm.
So we can pretty much, for our own lives, just think everything will be the same until at the earliest May or June. Okay.
Okay.
Which isn't that bad in the sense of like, okay, that's only 7-8 months. After that, we'll have a slow, cases will go down and all that stuff. And we'll have a slow easing of restrictions that may mean, we still got to, this is why I encourage people to get things like neck gaiters, make it easier on yourself. Anyway, after that, it'll slow down. And then, to be honest, by this time next year, I would not be surprised. This is all him talking, not me really.
Yeah.
But this time next year, I would not be surprised if or certain countries, whatever, we can start to just kind of go back to our thing.
Okay.
Right?
That'd be great.
Now, what he explained was historically, with these kind of situations, and right, a lot of things we've seen have already happened in history, right? There's been lockdowns, there's been, all this, pretty much everything has had pandemics.
Yeah.
2022, he was like, there's going to be about a year of shell shock, you know what I mean? Like culturally, right? So for the markets,
Great point.
if you're talking about economic shell shock, tons of people are still going to be, grandma's still going to be nervous to go outside, vaccine or not. All of our friends, we all have friends in this situation that are like real scared and like they won't speak to you. And, I can't answer my phone because I might, so the scared friends might still not, bars probably will be a little less, blah, blah, blah. So 2022 will still be a little rough, but by then, I mean, I think, guys like us or people who like to travel jet set, we should be able to go. I wouldn't be surprised if in order to enter certain countries, you have to be, as an American, you have to be vaccinated, things like that. Be ready for all that. But right around 2023, he says 2024. He says it'll take 2 years of shell shock, whatever. But he says 2024 is his date. I don't know if he means the top of it or whatever, but I'm going to say 2023 just to feel better. He's like, then we'll experience kind of, a hedonistic era, a roaring 20s,
Yes.
sexual liberation.
Let's
yeah,
go.
It's like,
let's go.
It's going down. It's going down. Get your, they were buying the toilet paper, man. Stock up on condoms because it's gonna go through the roof. They're gonna be
Condom stocks now, dude.
Condom stocks, Trojan. I'm putting the call option on Trojan. So. But yeah, so he's saying that we're gonna see similar to the 20s, because remember, the last pandemic at this level was 1918, and 1919 was kind of a weird year in the way that 2021 will probably be, and then the 20s. So I say all that to say, whether or not any of that is true or not, I think it's a good idea. It's useful to think that 2021 will be at least half what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So then we got to worry about is the next 6 months. So I'm just doing what I'm doing. I'm focused on my business. But I'm also understanding that there will be a day, and it'll come faster than we think. Although this is a long year for all of us. How quickly did this year go? Christmas is in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I do remember very well me, you, and Andrew hanging out. It did feel like, it felt longer than probably most years, but it felt like we hung out like 3 months ago.
Yeah,
right?
for real. Yep.
But I'm gonna think, how prepared do I have to be for the roaring 20s? And that's the exciting part. Like if we think after this is all done, not only are things gonna go back to quote unquote normal, but some things are gonna be better, right? Like especially in the United States, delivery service, just the infrastructure.
You're right.
The infrastructure of getting things to you has just expounded. So that's gonna be better. everybody who's been, there's going to be a whole new, Charles Black, there's going to be a whole new group of chicks, that have been lonely. So they got to go cop that Down to Desire. You know what I'm saying? Y'all got to go cop that Down to Desire to help y'all be ready. It's like, nah, but, we're going to have a fun era. And so I need to be rich by then.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm already like, physically I'll be all right. I'm pretty in the gym, but that's my plan. You know what I mean? Is understand that 2021 is still a year to double down on everything great that we've all been doing.
Great.
So the Habit crew, anybody watches Boss Life's going to be killing it this year. We already know. So continue to watch this stuff, take part in that. And then any habits or good life stuff that we've done, keep doing it. You still got time to tighten it up more. Anything that you haven't started, you still have time, right? Anybody watching this who's just getting in their habits or whatever, or is thinking about doing social media, I would say do it now. Learn the BS that you need to learn now. If you're thinking about starting the social media, buy the camera now. Spend 2021 learning it, because I guarantee when things open back up and everybody is out at the bars, because you can go to the bars again, and everyone who loves to travel like us nomad people are like, yo, I'm in Bali again. You're going to have FOMO, and you're not going to start that business or deal with those emotional issues that, we talk about, that we've had to go through building those habits. If you don't start your habits now, people, like, it's a wrap. Because I'm telling you, do you think anybody started habits in 1923 when, like, Al Capone and Babe Ruth were running around and the flapper girls? There were no habits being built when the girls were doing the Charleston,
That's like so real, because like most people's normal excuse to not do habits is I'm busy with work and I don't have any energy when I get off. So like if you're stuck at home, I mean, it's just as easy to come up with an excuse like, well, I'm stressed and I don't want to start now because everything's in chaos. And I understand like where that's coming from, but it's like it's really also your choice. You can make it the perfect excuse to get everything started because you have all this time. And like you said, you still have, especially even assuming we only go till June or July, maybe it'll go, a whole nother year, but even if just till June, July, that's like 6, 7, 8 months to get way ahead of everyone else who's just going to be watching Netflix,
Yeah. And as I kind of hinted, and I'm sure you've experienced this as well. Once you knock out your habit stack, as you might call it, you can still watch Netflix. I still watch Netflix. I watched the Aaron Hernandez killer documentary, the football player. I'm a Patriots fan, and I was like, man, this stuff is crazy. But I watched that at 9 p.m. Like I said, I've gotten on the side of the sports card investing because after work, I just sit in my house, and I like sports, so I do that. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think I don't think people are prepared for what their mind is going to do to itself when it's like, what's that old line? Like, you fuck like somebody fresh out of jail. You know what I mean? Like, there's emotionally, we're going to feel like we've been in jail a little bit. You know what I mean? And there's that shell shock. You know what I mean? So I think it's important to, like how dudes get jacked in jail. But what doesn't happen is they don't get jacked in jail, and then they come out of jail and get jacked like that. No, like, you're supposed to get jacked when you're in jail because you ain't got nothing else to do. I've never seen somebody who's like, yeah, I was in jail for 5 years, I was fat, and then the minute I got out, what I wanted to do was go to the gym. You know what I mean? And that's
that's a great point, dude. If you're not going to do it during this time, you're probably not the kind of person who's ever going to do it.
No, nowhere. No.
Holy
I know
shit.
for a fact.
Holy shit. I didn't even think about that. Damn.
Yeah. Think of all the girls that aren't hanging out with you because they're scared of Rona. Like, you think that when they're like, oh, I'm not scared anymore, it's safe, come out with me, that you're gonna be like, no, I've got to focus on my habits once it's once it's reopened. Like, no. Like, you're gonna go to that party once you're allowed to go to that party. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Right.
I mean, some people are different than me. Maybe I shouldn't say everybody, but I think it's a safer bet to assume, that it will be very hard once we can travel again, kind of go where we want. And you know, it's just judging the probabilities, you know.
Hell yeah, dude. Fucking amazing. Well, dude, I think that seems like a perfect place to wrap.
Yeah, how we doing? Perfect. Yeah.
I'd love
Yeah,
to,
man.
maybe we could plug what you're up to right now. You know, I would have put it in the beginning as well, your Instagram, but let's plug it here again. The Insta, how do people support you? What are you up to? What's next for you? All that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just thinking of the rap way to do it because I work in. We didn't talk about much what I do, but I run a YouTube channel where I teach people how to rap. So I was about to be like, all right, y'all, you know what I'm saying? Go plug this. You know, you can get the CD. It's on Apple. I'm on Spotify. No. No, okay. So what I am for the Boss Life community, you can just follow my personal brand / my real name, real me account. That's at Drew Morisey. I'm sure we'll have that all up there for me. That's where you kind of see my life. My main business is also attached to that, so you can see it in my bio. My YouTube channel is How to Rap, spelled as you think it is. Not rap is in Christmas though. If this comes out good, rap is in I be rapping though, right? It's like nah, but yeah. So you can check out my videos. I do that, and you know, I'm just in the ecosystem, part of the Boss Life family, and I'm around. So yeah, thanks for inviting me, homie. You know, it's an
Dude,
honor and a pleasure.
it's a legendary to have you, my man. This was actually super epic. We get so many amazing takeaways, also for me personally and for the community and the crew inside HHM. So they're gonna love this. So thank you, bro. And let's have you, when you get a chance, I know you're busy, but let's have you come meet the guys inside the crew one time. We did like a special presentation with Charles Black. He came and joined us inside. I'd love to have you come join and see what we're up to sometime and introduce you.
Anytime, man. Shout out to Andrew. I know one of them.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
Killing it. Yeah, anytime, man. For sure, of course.
Savage. Everyone, thank you for watching another episode of the Alex Walton Experience.
Thank you, Mr. Alex Walton. You got it for me, buddy.